As you realize, here in Cyprus, the sun is abundant. So it's pretty obvious that our strategy revolves around solar energy. We have taken a distributed strategy, if I may call that, and that's based basically on installing as many rooftop solars as possible. We already have about 12,000 households. We are launching more programs as we speak, so we can enable industry and hotels as well to take advantage of rooftop solar. But at the same time, we have launched a program where we allowed commercial installation of renewables, and I have to say we received about 400 megawatts of applications. And to put that number into perspective, that represents about 12% of consumption, of electricity consumption. Not all of these projects will be implemented, of course, due to mainly technical challenges, but a lot of them will. And that will certainly help us achieve our 2020 targets, and from there on build on that strategy on how to scale, particularly on rooftop solar, storage, technology, artificial intelligence or machine learning, to enable us to meet and exceed our 2030 goals as well. The target that we have for 2020 is to achieve 13% penetration in renewables, in the energy mix, and about 10% in transport. We are almost at 10% with regards to the penetration in renewables, so we're pretty optimistic that we'll be able to meet that number. From there on, we're also trying to launch a tender for introducing natural gas into the energy mix, which today it's dominated by heavy fuel. And for that reason, we have also received a grant from the European Union under the Project of Common Interest framework, which will allow us to introduce floating units, the necessary pipelines, exactly to introduce natural gas into our energy mix. Within that perspective, of course, as an isolated system, we're facing some challenges with the grid. This is why we're also promoting at the same time a project of common interest to the European Union called the Euro-Asia Interconnector, which enables us to connect Cyprus to Israel and to Greece through an electricity cable. And among other benefits of lifting Cyprus's energy isolation, it will also enable us to stabilize the grid and allow us to penetrate renewables even further. Let me say that the most recent discovery that we've had was Calypso in Block 6. That was discovered by the consortium of Eni and Total. It's a very promising commercial discovery that we are currently in the process of evaluating. And indeed, we are anticipating further exploration drilling to happen in the next few months in Block 10, starting with Block 10, 2 back-to-back wells, and eventually we'll move into the other blocks as well. All of this activity and the interest of super majors, which are showing in Cyprus Exclusive Economic Zone, shows the potential not only for the country, but also for becoming an alternative source of supply and routes of energy for the European Union. We all know that the existing indigenous resources of Europe are depleting, and the continent is in need of finding new sources. We strongly feel that the Eastern Mediterranean could be a source of that diversification of energy supplies. As for the benefits for the country, those are coming in multiple ways. In the short term, what we are seeing is increased economic activity with regards to the drilling, to the exploration activities that the companies are having. So we are seeing all of the offshore and onshore facilities which are needed to be used for such exploration, not only for Cyprus, but for the region at large, being based here in Cyprus. That's creating employment opportunities, that's creating a lot of business activity. We will soon be seeing also the benefits of selling of those hydrocarbons, which we could be talking about a lot, a very high percentage of GDP. So we could be seeing a really strong new sector contributing into the country's GDP. And of course, in the longer term, what we want to achieve and what the vision is that we want to leverage on the number one asset that we have here, which is the human capital. So we want to be able to build a knowledge-based economy centered around the oil and gas industry. All of those expert services that today we will have to import, we want to be in a position to be able to export them ourselves. Everybody knows that the region, the southeastern Mediterranean, is a very turbulent region. Sometimes I wish we were operating in waters like the North Sea. We are not. Politics, geopolitics are a crucial element of what we try to do. And as you have seen in recent months, and indeed over the past few years, the President of Cyprus has been leading an effort to bring all of the countries of the region together. To bring all of the countries of the region together to first of all, maximize the potential that we have in the oil and gas sector, in the hydrocarbon sector, to talk about common infrastructures, to talk about common projects, to talk about exploring the wealth that this region has to offer. And indeed, some of the projects of common interest, which I've mentioned before, are part of this effort. This is why you're seeing tripartite meetings with Cyprus, Greece and Israel. This is why you're seeing quadrilateral meetings with Italy as well. This is why you're seeing tripartite meetings with Egypt, with Jordan, with Lebanon. We are promoting all of these alliances because we strongly feel that this is the best way that we can overcome the differences that traditionally and historically have existed in the region. And I strongly feel that the oil and gas industry and the gas wealth that has been discovered, and I'm pretty positive there will be more coming, can be a catalyst for this cooperation to exist. I wouldn't say that the EastMed pipeline and the pipeline to the LNG plants in Egypt are competitive. On the contrary, they are complementary, and they are all part of what we consider to be the EastMed corridor of natural gas to the European Union. So indeed, today, one solution that we are working on pretty intensively, I have to say, for the Aphrodite discovery. For the Aphrodite discovery, let me be specific, is to utilize some of the existing LNG plants in Egypt. And this goes far to show the extent of the cooperation which I mentioned before. So how do we utilize all of the existing infrastructure in the region before we move on to build new infrastructure? So indeed, we are looking very strongly at utilizing the LNG plants in Egypt for the Aphrodite discovery, but then in future discoveries could very well, if of course the volumes and prices justify that, could see themselves on their way to Europe via the EastMed pipeline. Or indeed, another option that we also are exploring is an LNG plant in Cyprus. Right? So imagine for a second that we're shipping the gas to Egypt, right? It gets liquefied. We send it by via pipeline, it gets liquefied, and it's sent to Europe. Right? And all of these methods, the EastMed, LNG plants in Egypt, or an LNG plant in Cyprus, are what we call the Eastern Med corridor of natural gas to the European Union. So the idea is to find multiple routes, right, as well to drive the gas to the European continent, because you don't want to build dependencies on routes as well. Already the European Union has built dependencies on supplies. You don't want to build dependencies on routes. This is why we're exploring multiple methods, and discovering more gas will be a key determinant of which of these options will go forward or not.